Now to that moment we mentioned a bit ago at the news conference in Uvalde, where Texas Governor Greg Abbott was interrupted by his Democratic challenger in the race for governor, Beto O'Rourke. The former congressman was in the audience at the start of the event, but as Governor Abbott began to wrap up his opening remarks, O'Rourke walked to the foot of the stage and began to address the governor.
Don't play this. The next shooting is right now, and you are doing nothing.
No, he needs to get his ass out of here. This isn't the place to talk this over.
This is totally predictable when you...
Sir, you're out of line. Sir, you are out of line. Sir, you are out of line. Please leave this auditorium. I can't believe you're a sick son of a that would come to a deal like this to make a political issue.
O'Rourke, as you can see, was escorted out of the news conference eventually, but continued to speak to reporters outside.
Do you want a solution? Stop selling AR-15s in the state of Texas. You want a solution? Have universal background checks. We don't have them. You want a solution? Red flag laws or extreme risk protection orders, which stop a shooting before it happens. You want a solution? Safe storage laws. Those are 4 solutions that have been brought up by the people of Texas. Each one of those has broad bipartisan support right now. We could get that done if we had a governor who cared more about the people of Texas than he does his own political career or his fealty to the NRA. And if you need any proof of that, check the schedule for the NRA's convention this Friday right here in the state of Texas.
O'Rourke has called on the governor to withdraw from the National Rifle Association's convention this weekend in Houston, tweeting, urge them to hold it anywhere but Texas.
Yeah, it really is unbelievable. And Mika, you know, guys on stage calling him a sick son of a bitch for actually bringing up guns.
The one thing that was not brought up in the press conference.
Because, again, it's just, look over there. Look over. It's always something else. It's mental health. It's mental health. I haven't seen Governor Abbott funding mental health in Texas, so everybody goes, oh, wow, he's really... No. It's just an excuse today to make people forget about the slaughter. Another slaughter, yet another slaughter in Abbott State. And Mika, you talk about a sick son of a bitch. The guy called Beto a sick son of a bitch. The sick son of a bitches were the ones up on that stage that keep the freaks on that stage that keep passing gun legislation that allows 18-year-olds to go get weapons of war and gun down little children. Everything that Beto said, everything that he said to those reporters is supported by the overwhelming majority of Americans. And that's what's really sick.
And how could they not understand that
Abbott doesn't want to talk about it. Marco Rubio doesn't want to talk about it. Says the NBA doesn't want to talk about China. Marco doesn't want to talk about guns. Mm-hmm. Because you know what? There is no moral defense to this. There is no political defense to continuing to stand in the way, which Republicans did again yesterday, stand in the way of legislation that 8 out of 10 Americans support. Maybe 9 out of 10 Americans support it. How many Americans do you think would support stopping an 18-year-old who can't buy a beer,
not mature enough,
who can't rent a car,
can't make good decisions,
from Avis, who can't rent a car from Avis, to go out and get a gun that's more deadly than the guns we gave our troops in Vietnam? I think that's a majority position, just like the background checks, just like everything else, Mika, that Governor Abbott, that Senator Rubio, that every one of those people up on the stage calling Beto a son of a bitch for talking about this.
It was one big, massive exercise in avoidance, and it was painful to watch, and I jumped out of my seat watching the television. So I don't blame anyone else for getting emotional. And they should have been more, quite frankly, validating of that, but that would have to involve being honest.
Not a political issue, Mika. A moral issue. This is a moral issue, isn't it, Mika?
It is. It's our children.
And that's the fallback always, right? Don't politicize it. Stop playing politics.
Please.
You can call it whatever you want to call it. Let's call it solutions. It's not politics. We're trying to find a way to stop little kids from dying in their schools
they were
with
so
high-powered rifles.
On stage, getting ready for their big meeting in Houston. They didn't want to step on any toes before they go meet with Wayne LaPierre this weekend.
Again, Willie, let me ask, what did we do after January the 6th? We talked about it. What did we do after September 11th? We talked about it. Republicans talked about it. When a Muslim in San Bernardino goes around and uses a gun and kills a lot of people, they talk about it. When an immigrant, an illegal immigrant, kills people, oh my God.
Fox News alert.
Fox News alert for 48 hours immediately.
My God.
They talk about it. They do massive segments about it. So why is it that they don't want to talk about second graders and third graders and fourth graders being unrecognizable because they've been gunned down by weapons of war?
There's no humanity on that stage.
None.
They gave the pro forma
It was
statements
incredible.
about the horror of the day and the thoughts and prayers, but there was no humanity about 19 children and 2 teachers slaughtered in a classroom. Let's go to San Antonio, Texas. NBC News correspondent Garrett Haake is there. Garrett, good morning. What's the latest? What are you hearing?
Well, Willie, I mean, the political fallout out of that O'Rourke thing yesterday, I think, is going to continue. This is the kind of thing where this is what a lot of Democrats have been hoping for in the state of Texas, someone to express the frustration that they have felt. It's in line with the kind of politics that he has liked to practice, and it's in line with the political theory that says there is a voter base in Texas who wants the kind of thing that you've been outlining, that there is an 80% majority in a state like Texas who wants the kind of policies that we haven't seen here in this state, like red flag laws, which were discussed after Santa Fe and Sutherland Springs, the other 2 big mass shootings in Texas, but didn't get off the ground. The question of buying long guns, buying rifles at 18, but handguns not allowed to be bought in Texas until you're 21 is the other big piece of this puzzle. Governor Abbott was asked about that at the press conference and made an argument that it's been 60 years that that's been the law in Texas, that you could buy a long gun at 18, not a handgun. And he essentially said that was the reason not to change it. As a Texan myself, I can tell you that it very much has changed in this state in 60 years, and that question deserves a follow-up. Now, the question about the NRA meeting this weekend is an interesting one in Houston on Friday. John Cornyn, the Texas senator, had been scheduled to appear. He has since said that it's not related to Uvalde, but that he will not be going. Likewise, Dan Crenshaw, the Republican congressman from Houston, has said he will not be going. Governor Abbott hasn't outlined his schedule. His comment at the press conference yesterday was something about kind of taking it day by day in this moment, but whether he chooses to show up on Friday and share a stage with former President Trump, who is expected to attend, Ted Cruz, who is expected to attend, is going to be very interesting to watch. There will be reporters at that event, and they're going to get more questions about guns. There was really only a handful of questions about guns at that press conference, with a lot of questions left, frankly, unanswered.
And Garrett, before we let you go, is the governor still planning to speak at the NRA convention tomorrow and this weekend? Is the lieutenant governor still planning to be there as well?
They have said they are taking it day by day, Willie. No definitive scheduling remarks by the governor. They're still on the schedule. They're still expected to appear.
As will former President Donald Trump, who confirmed he will, in fact, be there in Houston at the NRA convention. NBC's Garrett Haake. Garrett, thank you very much.